How do you feel like this has already had effect on Sanford already?
We have more to offer than almost any town can. It has a deep history, and the sad thing is that that's overshadowed by one person's decision, one night, in a moment. And the world's focused on that, not who and what Sanford truly is.
Tracy Flowers lives in Sanford, but she works in a different city and her coworkers are hesitant to visit her.
My coworkers are like, oh, I don't feel comfortable going over there. I'm not gonna come to your house after dark. And it's like, it's fine. I've never had any issues.
We asked our panel about how the shooting of Trayvon Martin has thrust Sanford into the center of the national conversation about race.
There is a sense of unease when somebody of my particular complexion and age is in Sanford. That's a reality.
I'm sorry that you felt that way. I'm very sorry. Speaking from my town, I'm sorry.
One stayed on one side and the other stayed on the other side. So now we was coming more like a community and coming together. And then it's like when this happened, you know, it just put a damper on a lot of things.
Some Sanford residents blame frequent violence on the mistrust of Sanford police stemming from the Trayvon Martin shooting.
Nobody's realizing that the kids are in uproar in Sanford.
There really needs to be some honest effort to engage young people.
The idea of engaging the young people, that's where it happens at home and in the community. But strongly, it happens at home, because those are the feelings of the parents coming through those children.
Despite negative effects on the city, some of our panelists say this has forced Sanford to talk about problems that have been under the surface for far too long.
I've seen what was a stalemate in the city. This event, as tragic as it is, has dislodged that stalemate, and I see a movement towards, well, let's get candid, let's be honest, let's really get the issues out on the table, when as before we would just go our separate ways.
Has the George Zimmerman case created a new racial divide in Central Florida? The fatal shooting of Trayvon Martin has sparked a debate about racial profiling outside of the courtroom. But will it be an issue inside the courtroom during the trial? News 13's Kelly Cook is getting answers.
It looked a lot different 1 year ago here in Fort Mellon Park, where it was predominantly African Americans who came here to rally in protest of the shooting of Trayvon Martin.
And we start our coverage right now.
It was at those many protests, often played out on live television.
We're right in the middle of the action.
That the world saw the debate over racial inequality was still alive decades after the civil rights movement.
We come to tell you tonight, enough is enough.
Behind the signs and the chants, many protesters said George Zimmerman focused in on Trayvon because he was a black teenager.
Hey, we've had some break-ins in my neighborhood, and there's a real suspicious guy.
I have a 15-year-old son, and we don't live that far from where this took place. And I thought, that could have been my child. He could have been walking to the store. He could have been in that situation.
And I've done that a million times too, going up in a store and being targeted as someone that's about to do something, you know, and having people follow you around in the store.
This case is polarizing. Polls have shown a divide along racial lines about the guilt or innocence of George Zimmerman.
Somebody said this a long time ago, said no matter what happens in this case, it's going to be bad for America, and I fear that he's right. Shouldn't be. This case should have been, the criminal element should have been divorced from the civil rights element a long, long time ago.
Zimmerman's attorney says despite accusations, evidence proves that Zimmerman is not a racist, and the issue of race should stay out of the courtroom. Media critic and author of the book Race Baiter, Eric Deggans, says the outrage surrounding the Trayvon shooting was a perfect mix of historical discontent between the black community and the Sanford Police Department.
Well, I actually think the Trayvon Martin shooting resonated beyond the black community, which is why it was so notable. It seemed to exemplify a lot of issues that people were concerned about. On the one hand, people are concerned about racial profiling. On the other hand, people are concerned about how the criminal justice system treats people of color.
In one of his writings, Deggans says Trayvon Martin's name might not be so well known, except for this: Martin is black, and the man who killed him is not. Kelly Cook, News 13. February 26, 2012. Race fans flocked to the Daytona 500. The city of Orlando had basketball fever. There were athletes and celebrities taking over the city for the All-Star Game.
I know the weather conditions because I was out at an All-Star Game party that night, and it was drizzling. It was cold.
Central Florida and the national media were consumed with two major sports events at once. But little did we know that just 16 minutes after the start of the All-Star Game, Trayvon Martin was shot by George Zimmerman to little fanfare.
It wasn't in the media. So the people, the community leaders in Sanford were already talking about it. And what are they gonna, why aren't you doing an arrest?
And I think for a while, people thought it was the unfortunate end to a fight between two grown males. When Trayvon Martin's age emerged, that added an extra dimension to it.
After about 11 days and still no arrests, Trayvon's parents hired attorney Ben Crump and got in front of cameras pleading their case. Jackson credits 3 moments for how this case picked up steam, one being 2 reports from the Associated Press and CBS, and then a petition from Change.org calling for the arrest of Zimmerman. Well, that literally changed everything.
From there, that petition garnered, in 1 month, I believe, 2.2 million signatures.
And the moment that really thrust this story into the national spotlight.
Are you following him? Yeah. Okay, we don't need you to do that.
It's when the world heard from themselves what happened that night in the 911 calls.
In the days and weeks after that audio became public, just tremendous amounts of coverage in cable television and morning television.
Trayvon's face was literally everywhere. 6.5 weeks after the day Trayvon was shot, it was announced that Zimmerman will be charged with second-degree murder, turning this practically ignored news story into one we could be talking about decades from now. Kelly Cook, News 13.